All right, let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good morning, Terry. My name is Claudio, and I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Terry Oldfield accepted our invitation to our show. Terry, welcome to the show, man, once again.
Yeah, thanks. Lovely to see you, Claudio. It's been about a year since we talked last.
All right, absolutely. Same here, man. Before we start, talking about your new podcast called Facing the Music, I wanted to ask you about a kind of simple question. I mean, people change, they mature, they look at life in different perspective. But in your case, right, you have composed over 50 film and TV production, received 2 Emmy nominations. As you know, your music resonate with so many people doing meditation, yoga, and so on and so forth. Were you unhappy in the period of life, if you will, that you start stepping back a little bit and looking life in like a different perspective, if you will?
Do you mean recently or
Yeah,
early on
in the last 3 years or so, or 4 years.
No, they're definitely not unhappy. I would say that I was kind of moved because making decisions about life is kind of is over for me, because decisions are made for me, because all I do is respond to what comes up, and I do the best I can in whatever circumstances present themselves to me. So that's a different approach to living. And unhappiness is caused by resistance to the flow of creation, basically. And the realization of this was not a sudden thing for me. It happened over a period of years. Well, it's a lifetime's journey, really. But I think we all eventually reach a final truth, which is that everything happens in the present moment. And any resistance I have to the present moment, in other words, if I'm always heading towards something else, I'm missing out on what's happening here. And so it's a far more accurate way of responding to life. And in fact, we get lived rather than live our lives. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. But so many people have a hard time living in the present, right? They live in the past or in the future. Man, I would like to do that. I would like to do that. What I did, what I did, what I fought with my brother, my aunt, my neighbor, whatever, right? It's hard to live in the present. How were you able, what did you do to accommodate and say, well, I want the now, I you know.
Well, what happens is that when you start really looking within rather than looking outside for answers to your problems, you start to observe the way that the mind works, and you get in touch with the whole mechanics of thinking, because thought is something which is basically just passing through. And those thoughts, if they are identified with, in other words, if you're replaying a memory from the past constantly and trying to replay something which you think should be happening, because we only have access to the hard drive, the memory, just like a computer. We cannot create anything new with an effort of will. We can become available, like when I play the flute, I become available to play whatever seems to come up in the present moment. Whereas if I have a tune in mind from 1991, I wrote this really great, cool thing, and now I'm going to replay it. That can be done, but it's nothing new. And so to get in touch with the new, one has to let go of the past, because the past is constantly being plastered onto the future. And when we get in touch with that whole process, it frees us up in an enormous way to be present, because we are taking a step back from that whole flow of thinking. We're no longer caught up in it. We don't think we are our thoughts. We are the witness of our thoughts, and so we can let things go as they come up. We don't get grabbed by them. And one of the prerequisites of this whole process is to get in touch with your feelings. We're taught from a very early age to avoid our feelings, you see. You know, don't do this, don't do that. You've got to suppress those feelings, and we become afraid of them. And so once you open up to these feelings, you connect with your feeling body, and all the stuff that was incomplete from the past starts to become presented to you now. And it's a bit like just saying, okay, I will have things the way that they are, exactly as they are. And I'm not afraid to have the feelings associated with all that. And so you start playing catch up. All the incomplete stuff comes at you. And to begin with, it's incredibly intense. But this is where facing the music comes in, because I like that picture we use on the podcast with, I'm actually standing in a river in Norway facing the midnight sun. It's like standing in the flow, being willing to have things unchanged. And so the whole process of judgment starts to fade away, because we work with, I'm going to have that, but I don't want that. That's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. And that takes up all our energy. And once we step back and say, okay, this is perfect as it is, however I react to it is intense maybe, but that's okay. I'm not afraid anymore. I will face the music and have it the way that it is.
Why do you think that 99% of the people in the world are having a hard time, or will have a hard time trying to do that? They're afraid. They want to look inwards and let everything go, and then have the emotion, take over, and feel it take over, and relax and let it go, which is very I don't know, for me it's difficult. And the majority of the people, I think, listening to it, it's difficult. It's not that easy, right, to do it.
That's because we think that we can control our lives. You see, if we are willing to be fully in the body, in other words, fully incarnated as a human being,
yeah,
we only experience the world through our senses. If you really think about that, that is the truth. You know, we have the sight, the hearing, the touch, and that is our way of experiencing reality. Without the senses, the world will disappear. There is no world for us. Okay, you could you put yourself in one of those sensory deprivation tanks. I don't know if you've heard of those, where you go into a weightless state and you have no sense of whether you're up or down, or
yeah.
So it's the first thing is to become completely okay with being in a feeling body and not being afraid of how we respond to circumstances. So facing the music is a very powerful way of living, but it requires an enormous change in the way that we see things, because we search for happiness. We search to make ourselves better out there in the world. And all we can do is say, well, okay, that worked for me before, so I'm going to make that happen again. I've got to keep that. That's okay, but that made me unhappy. That thing over there made me unhappy, so I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to block it out of my life, and I'm going to avoid it as much as possible. And so we create this area of control, this fortress. And that requires all our energy to maintain it. Now, the present moment requires 100% of us. All our energy needs to be available in order to live in the present moment. So people say, well, it's very difficult to live in the present moment. Well, you cannot live in the present moment unless you surrender all your control. And this is the secret of a happy life. We stop trying to make ourselves better and have ourselves the way that we are now.
So you, little by little, you start accomplish that and let it go. So what was the motivation of converting your thought process, what you were mentioning, into creating a podcast called the Facing the Music, and creating a YouTube channel to share your life and the way of thinking and the way of feeling with the rest of the world? Why you wanted to do that?
Yeah, I mean, these things happen. This happened very naturally, actually, through a conversation with a friend of mine in Spain, John Valdivia, who very kindly put the whole thing together. So all I am doing is making myself available.
Correct.
We had many conversations just in the evening, online, over a period, and John recorded them.
Yeah.
Now he's edited together over 40 of these conversations.
Got it.
These were very spontaneous, really spontaneous in the moment, not trying to be anything.
Got it.
We're not trying to do a podcast in order to do anything. This was just a reflection of what was happening in the moment. A bit like what's happening with us, Claudio. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no ulterior motive here. not on my part.
No, it's not for me. Yeah.
And it's something which is occurring naturally.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
For me, more than interviews, we are not talking about music today. So our conversation between people that, they want to talk about a particular subject, and so forth. Like I told you before, a year ago, for me, I'm a very intuitive person, and I have had so many experiences in my life that has allowed me to kind of see the other side, right? Kind of in between life, what happened when we pass. And I grew up in a Catholic family similar to yours, and in Latin America and Chile. And I have so many experience that created conflict in my life, because the Catholic Church, tell me, well, the world is this way, this way, this way. And through the experience that I have had, they were different. So it created conflicts in my life, and I kind of come to the realization that reality is a lot more complex that people or physicists or psychologists are trying to explain. And that's the best way I can describe it. And I'm lucky that I have had those experiences, because I think that that's the other side, right? When we cross over and so forth. So, it's hard to, facing the music, or I would call it, in my case, I would say, looking in the mirror, right? It's hard to open up. It's hard to open up. It's difficult to let go, whatever that happened to me, music, car, fame, whatever, it's difficult to let go, I suppose. It's no, that is, we are attached to things. We are afraid to look inside, to look inward, fears, emotion, problems. Many of us have complicated upbringing, and that's what makes us human beings. And some are willing to look inside, right? Be an introvert, do an introspection, and see what is in kind of important in life. In many ways, I similar to you, I sort of faced the music, faced my inner life during the COVID, because I could have died, a lot of people die, and I didn't, and I kind of put into context my life, understood that what was important, what made me happy, what didn't make me happy, and what was important was important. I was running to my life so fast, so the COVID forced me to stop, and they call it here, smell the roses, right? And I started smelling the roses, and I noticed what was important for me in my life, and what was doing right, what I was doing wrong, what made me happy, what didn't make me happy, and take action to accomplish that, whatever happened to be. And as a human being and a citizen of this world, what crazy world that we happen to be living here. So so that was kind of my way of looking. In one of the podcasts that I saw that you are providing YouTube channel, you mentioned something that doing has sort of ended for me, right? So you remember that you mentioned that you were creating a record, then another one, and then you kind of stopped doing, right? And living, and then whatever, not planning, well, a high level planning your day to day, right? Because you have activities, but not kind of planning everything and letting things kind of happen, live with the flow, or so to speak. Feel free to elaborate. I'm trying to do the best I can to explain what your conversation was with John. So,
well, there'll always be doing, but the doer is the thing I'm talking about that vanishes. The doer is the one who thinks that I can decide what to do, and I'm going to take as my inspiration past experience, because the doer is dependent upon the storage of memory and past experience. Doing is a response to what the universe presents in front of us. Like, I wake up in the morning, and most days I have no idea what's happening today. And to begin with, that can be thought of as quite scary, because the one thing that we are most afraid of is the emptiness.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because we're constantly filling our lives full of activity, stuff, because we think at some point we made a decision that stuff will make me happy. As long as I get the right stuff, that will make me happy. Because I have had experiences. I like go and buy a new car. Oh, I'm so happy I've got a new car, but it wears off. It's a passing thing. And that kind of happiness is very fleeting. But the real happiness comes through being willing to be happy now with whatever happens. In other words, not minding anymore what happens, because I'm completely able to face the music, right, and be with what is, you see. And it's a totally different way of living. And I can't emphasize enough that it requires a letting go, an emptying out, rather than a filling, because we're constantly in this habit of filling the space. That emptiness is actually who we really are. We are the space that contains everything. In other words, consciousness.
You think that on purpose we keep ourselves busy because we don't want to face the music, we don't want to be quiet?
Totally. That's what I'm saying.
Turn off the phone, turn off the computer, don't call your mom, just walk for a walk without devices and sit on a park somewhere, and then no agenda, just
No agenda, and that cannot be brought about through an effort of will. You see, you can't do that, because that is also an effort to improve. What I've got to do is be really present. I've got to stop doing everything. So I'm going to clear my calendar.
That's
and I'm
right.
just
Yeah.
but that's doing, you see. What I'm talking about is self-inquiry, which means that you start to look within at the whole mechanics of the way that you live. And what happens is there's an understanding takes place on a very deep level, and that turns off the automation. You cannot switch off the automation with an effort of will, because what's trying to switch it off is the very thing that is turned on.
Yeah.
So we're talking about self-inquiry is when you start to become aware of yourself in action. When you start to see the mechanics of the way the mind constantly tries to avoid. And that word is absolutely perfect. The void, void. Let's get out of this emptiness. Let's completely negate this empty feeling that keeps coming up when I stop. And the word stop is so important, because what we're talking about is not an effort of will. You don't say, right, what I've got to do in order to stop, right, I'm going to stop. You cannot do that. It stops by itself when you understand the whole process of what's going on in the automation in this mind-body experience. Because either you're in a looping mode, and you understand what that's all about with music, right? Loops are the key to modern music, you know. But when you stop, the looping slows down and it starts to flow. And that flow is the key to happiness, being willing to be in the flow, like the figure standing in the river, looking towards the light. It's the willingness to stand your ground and be with what is. And this requires enormous courage, but it's the only way to true happiness.
Are you happy in your life now?
Very happy.
Happier than you were.
Happiness is not something which is a mood. It's not a mood. Happiness is, I think the yogic term, they call it santosha.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a high indifference to what happens. It's not happiness dependent on an object. So you don't say, oh, I've got all this, oh great, I've got some new money, I'm happy now, because that money is going to be spent. You're going to be miserable when it's gone. Oh, I've got this fantastic new relationship, I'm in love, oh wonderful, yeah, I'm so happy. And then you fall out with that person, yeah, oh, I'm so miserable. You know, it's like that roller coaster, you know, that's what we call life. And I'm talking about that incredible sense of okayness with whatever is passing through here. I've got my arms open. I'll have it. Okay. Is that it's so simple, because all we have to do is stop trying to be something that we're not.
We try to please people, our partner, our parents, our neighbor, whatever, you know, our record producer that wanted you to do. No, we want this kind of music for this commercial, this or that, right? So we were pleasing without ignoring if we were happy or not happy on then, right? So
well, that's what happened with the film music. I for years I wrote music that other people wanted. And I started to get a bit suspicious when people used to say to me, oh, that sounds nice, but it's not what I had in mind. I said, but you're employing me to write music that I think works, right? I can't read your mind and try and create, write your
Mm.
music.
Yep.
And so I started to get really quite stressed. And in my 40s, I actually had a what they call a breakdown, because this is the universe's way of saying, stop doing what you're doing. We're going to help you to stop. I literally walked into my studio, turned on the switch, because I had everything linked to one switch, turned on the mixer and everything. And I turned myself off. I actually, all my energy went, ugh.
Right.
I had to lie down on the floor. I'm not kidding you. I
I believe you, man. I believe you.
I actually called out for help. I said, help, I've got no energy. I can't get up off the floor. It was like that. And that lasted for 2 years. And that helped me. You see, that's what I mean. It's positive when something like that happens. It's not the end of the world. It's not. It's the end of that way of doing things.
Mm.
And so if you come across a terrible situation in your life, I mean, somebody's died, or you have terrible illness or something, I'm saying that the way to move with that experience is to allow the feelings. That's the fastest way through it. It's like moving through a ravine, with big tall cliffs, and the current is powerful. What are you going to do? Climb the cliffs? Swim upstream, or just let yourself flow out of the ravine with it? It's a simple thing. And you can't avoid life if you want to be happy. It's so powerful, this, Claudio. It's just a different way of living. It's so powerful that you cannot imagine how simple it is. It's just, I don't know how I never saw it until I saw it. It was just incredible.
I try to understand. I'm not there yet. I kind of follow, and I respect you personally, right? Claudio is not there yet. Terry's there. I'm not there, right? But I try to, because I'm an engineer. I was trained in a certain way. My although inside of me, I see. Some days I'm an engineer. I want to be an engineer, but some hours, some days I'm not an engineer, and I kind of aim in what you were saying and try to let it go and be happy and remove my agenda and get rid of things and go for a walk, whatever, do exercise and do reflection. And kind of face the music, face the mirror, and look at my life and do a kind of introspection. What I have done right in my life, what I haven't. I was rude to someone, I was mad to someone, and I have a bad day, and somebody was in front of me, and he or she paid the price, right? Without, that make us human beings. But I try to I don't understand it completely, but I try to understand what you aim in, and I'm happy that you're happy. I'm happy for you. You're a very good person. So I'm happy that you have reached that plateau.
It's the simplest thing. You see, everything that we try to do to make ourselves better, to make ourselves understand, to make ourselves be in the present moment, is all avoidance, because we're using all our knowledge, all that. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to sit on a cushion. I'm going to go and see a guru. I'm going to go traveling. I'm going to do. It's all avoidance. This is where it's all happening. And that understanding will carry you into the present moment by itself. You cannot do it. You don't need to do anything. You can drop all your doing, everything. You can drop the doing and just see what is happening in your automation. The way that you are living your life is automated. it's a reaction to a stimulation based upon past experience. That's essentially what the mechanics is doing. So you're looking out, and not you personally, Claudio, I'm not talking about you personally, I'm talking about a human being looks out at the world and says, oh, I want some of that, or I want to be like him, or I want to be something that will please people. So I will be that with a big effort, and I'll use up all my energy and probably make myself ill doing it, because I'm not being authentic. You see, authenticity comes through understanding. And that authenticity, we all have something unique to offer. We're incredible human beings. You know, you and I are totally amazing. We're equal. There's no difference between us. We are pure consciousness functioning through a limited perspective, which is a human body. But essentially, you and I are the same thing, and it's impossible for the mind to understand, because the mind is only programmed to operate in this reality, this particular reality. So all we can do is stop trying to know and start to accept that life is a mystery, be in the mystery, be in the unknown, empty out this cup that's so full. There's no room for anything else in here. You know, empty it. Be empty, and life will fill you up. It does. It fills you. And there's no need to do anything. Which doesn't mean to say you don't do nothing is done, because doing carries on. I mean, your life will continue just as it is, except you will be aware that you are not at the mercy of things. You are the pure witness of what's going on, and you've taken a step back out of the maelstrom of automation, you see. And that's the key to living a happy life.
Should offer like a seminar or training or something. I think a lot of people will resonate with what what you're saying, and they would like to put in practice what you.
Yeah, but there again, you see, as soon as you say what I've got to do is I've got to put this into practice,
then it's the opposite of what we're talking about.
You're saying I've got to do this, you know. And so what the mind does, it just constantly assimilates stuff, and then starts to use it to manipulate reality. This emptiness means that you don't hold on to anything. You are completely empty, and you're part of the flow of creation, rather than trying to create your own flow in creation. There's nothing. Yeah.
What do you think is reality? Since perhaps then the whole universe is a kind of mental creation. What is reality, though? What do you think?
Well, one thing I know is that that nothing is real. Not in the sense of nothing. That matter is not solid. The closest analogy you can create to this is a VR headset.
Yeah.
Where everything is connected to the sensory organism. It's the ultimate VR headset, you know, we're wearing here. So an Indian friend of mine came up with this phrase, which I've always remembered because it hit me so strongly. He said, "We are in a deep hypnotic trance in a holographic universe." And that's something which we can understand in terms of, you know, the modern technology. Because if I am not the body, which I am not the body, I mean, you can cut off bits of my body and that won't be me lying on the table. You know, my fingers can go, my heart, you know, most of it can go. And eventually it probably pass out. But you can inquire into things in that way too. You can say, well, look, who am I? What am I? And if you live with that question long enough, you'll realize that you really don't know. Because what we're looking for in the realm of knowledge is not going to cut it with trying to describe what's happening here, because what's happening here is so awesome and so amazing and so stupendous that it's totally beyond our ability to understand. And so in that, there's a kind of giving up, which helps, because the need to know is part of the structure of this separation, this separate fictitious self that's built on history, that's built on memory, that's built on drawing from the past and projecting onto the future, which creates suffering. You know, and the whole ancient world of, you know, Hindu mythology, it is all talking about this. You know, the world of Maya, that is the illusion of separation, the illusion of there being a world out there and I am an object. So when you disappear as an object, facing other objects, like I'm Terry television, Terry screen, Terry, when your identity is no longer limited to being in this body, it expands to contain everything. So, and that can be a lived experience. You can become the space that contains everything in action. Obviously, the limitations are still there with being dependent upon the sensory connections to the world and the universe. But it's just a different way of living, less confined, open. I sometimes feel like I'm at the center of a bubble. All this stuff around me is just, it has no substance to it. So if you try to understand that, what you're doing is looking in the archives. You're looking in the hard drive to try and understand it, you see.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
It has to become an understanding which is natural. It's like a sort of switch, the switches are turned off. Where the normal switches just get turned off because the mind has, there is an understanding which takes place, which creates. It's a bit like the, you know, you may have been in, I don't know if you've ever taken any kind of hallucinogenics. I experimented with those when I was.
No, nothing. Just coffee. Coffee and beer.
Exactly. So apparently LSD or whatever, it cuts off the supply of sugar to the cerebral cortex.
Yeah.
This is what I read. And so you can no longer recognize things. And so the world you see, you know, your VR headset gets reprogrammed. It doesn't have the recognition factor running. And so you start to see things in a different way. That's what the understanding that I'm talking about does. I'm not saying it cuts off the supply of sugar to the brain, all that sort of stuff, but it wipes out the automation, which keeps you stuck in a particular mode of seeing and experiencing the world. And it opens up a different way of seeing things, a different way of living. And this is what I talk about with Facing the Music. Every podcast is about this. it's not, I mean, there's a little bit of history in there about my career and stuff, but it's about this openness, which happens naturally, not through yoga or through meditation, although I have been through all those. But there were pathways that didn't lead anywhere. They were part of the learning process, which led to the understanding. But that understanding is not something like you suddenly get the last word in the crossword puzzle or something. You don't, it's not that kind of understanding. It's an understanding which completely transforms your way of living. Completely transforms it. It means you're no longer afraid. You're willing for anything to happen, and you can deal with it. We don't have to have any kind of defense mechanisms in play at all. Totally open to whatever happens. And that includes death. Okay. That's it. Bottom line, you know, annihilation, emptiness, death. That's it. The worst thing that can happen. That's okay. It's got to be, because it's part of the innumerable things that can happen in this reality.
Very, very deep what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just, I need to give it some thought.
It's an ongoing process.
Of course, absolutely, yeah.
There's no final. You know, you will reach your final truth through whatever path you're on, but it will come, because that's part of the game. I call it the game of life now. It's it's like Monopoly. You know, you could create a beautiful game. You know, game of life, because you get a realization and you climb up the board a bit. You know, and then the automation takes over again, and you slide back down again, like the game of snakes and ladders. Have you ever heard of that game?
Yeah. So my final truth is different from your truth. So
no, your final truth is your realization. You're stopping. It will stop. It stops you. That's all. You will not. It's not an intellectual understanding.
Yeah.
It's a change in your way of living, and you may not notice it happening. I certainly didn't notice it happening. It wasn't like, oh wow, I'm really getting it now. No, it's an integral transformation which happens, and the I that I think I am, or I thought I was, it creeps up on that and melts it away.
No, that isn't.
You will find yourself disappearing, but you won't realize it.
Probably. I will need to listen to this conversation again, and then listen to the rest of the episodes from Facing the Music in YouTube to try and understand. I know we have talked for like 50 minutes. The time's go fast, so
yeah, time's up now. Right.
Yeah, time is up, like a psychologist, you know. Last question, Terry, a musical question, kind of personal question, if you will. No, not really personal. But sometimes, I'm passionate about music. I don't play any instrument. I don't know how to read music. I have a big collection of music, and I go to a lot of concerts, and music has played still is a very important part of my life. And I always look at, kind of the upbringing of musician, or this or that, or the environment. And sometimes in a particular family, you will have, one person that became a musician, or he or she or whatever, or a band, or whatever. In your case, your brother Mike, which is well known, your sister Sally, and yourself, all of the three of you became kind of well known musicians, and I wonder how did it happen? I mean, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, but it's very, very uncommon, right? Like a family having 3 kids that are very good at soccer, a family that have three that the 3 are scholars, or whatever. In your case, the 3 of you with Mike and Sally happen to be musician and very well-known musician, very well recognized musician over the world. How? Feel free to elaborate. I don't know if I'm asking the correct question or.
It's a difficult question to answer because I don't know. You can look at all the history, like the early days, Mike and I forming a rock band, but we did it because everybody else was doing it. And we looked into that whole world of the 60s.
Yeah.
We were born into a time where everybody had a guitar.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted a Marshall amp, in the garage. And we literally used to practice in cricket pavilions and basements and there was that sort of adventurous spirit, I think, there. And my sister Sally, I mean, she went and started her career. I don't know how she did it, but she did. She was the first, really, Sally.
Yeah.
She started writing. Her music was a reflection of an understanding that happened with her. And Mike's
who's the oldest? Your sister is the older?
My sister, yeah.
Yeah. So
and then me, and then Mike, yeah. I'm the middle one.
So but I saw a video one day that Sally was telling that she ended up teaching Mike how to play the guitar with certain chords, and then see, it's a different Terry having a hobby, right? That all of you tell me, well, we were born in the 50s, 60s, all of kids wanted to, play music to try to get all the girls and all the stuff that we all do, but that's like a hobby. But the 3 of you became kind of world-class musician, if you will, and it's not that it's very right.
I have a theory. I have a theory, but this may not be. But and that relates back to facing the music, because we talked about being authentic. You understand that word, yes? Authenticity.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It means that you are bringing through something which is unique to Terry, unique to Mike, unique to Sally.
Yeah.
And that in our case, you probably read my book, or you might have done, you might have read Mike's book. We came out of a difficult family situation. Yeah. So we all suffered to the extent whereby we needed to express that suffering in some way. And we all found it through the music, you see. And that authenticity, that authentic, expression of that suffering was recognized by many people who were on the same level of vibration in their suffering. So we could talk more about this, but resonance in music is when you play a note on the flute and the gong over there in the corner starts to vibrate. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know I know exactly what you say. Yeah.
Harmonic resonance.
Yeah.
We as human beings, this is just a theory, but we vibrate at a certain frequency. And that frequency may be a kind of suffering, which is to do with, rejection or whatever you'd like to call
whatever
it.
happened to be. Yeah.
So if I'm playing this, something like that, I'm saying, I feel this, So if somebody hears that, they might resonate with it, start to vibrating on the same level. And with Tubular Bells, Mike was desperately unhappy when he was writing that music, and it was almost his need to express his feelings. And it just happened that there were millions of people out there feeling the same sort of stuff in their world.
So you sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So your brother,
go on.
So your brother Mike, Tubular Bells, right? Going through a difficult period, and I know the period, and so me, the consumer,
Yeah,
was suffering as well in
yeah,
order to be perceptive of the resonance that your brother was producing, right?
yeah. It's
Otherwise, I
like,
would have ignored that. I would say, well, I like the Beatles. I don't like Tubular Bells, kind of complicated music with a guitar and then many instruments. I needed to be kind of in the same wavelength, if you will, to make a connection with that
yeah.
suffering that you were going through,
It
right?
doesn't have to be suffering. It can be,
Or yeah, or
anything.
pain. Yeah,
Whatever the level of vibration
yeah,
resonates with the world. It's a bit like somebody. Who was this guy? Jesus. Just a man in cloths wandering around. He resonated with a few people, didn't he?
right. Yeah,
And look at the influence that he's had on the
yeah.
world.
The born of Christianity, right? So
Yeah,
that
and
was
then
something.
all these great figures in history, the Buddha, Muhammad, whatever, they've all resonated because they brought something through which was unique. So my music through the flute and all that was just I was just expressing how I felt. I was amazed when I was given a career in music. It was a miracle. And Mike's was a miracle, absolute miracle. I mean, how many people get taken up like that and given this enormous
Yeah,
world stage?
yeah,
You just, it
yeah,
doesn't happen
yeah.
unless you have something unique to offer. And just bringing it back to you and I here, Claudio, you have something totally unique to offer. And when that resonance is starts to happen, it's like suddenly you win the lottery or something, or you get taken up by the universe and
Yep.
used. You get used. If you're available, you'll get used. It's as simple as that.
Mm.
So being open and honest and free and unafraid, you will get used because you're a useful tool in the scheme of things.
In this game of thing, yeah. All right, man. Thank you, Terry. We've been on our with man. I enjoy talking to you, man. You're a
Yeah, it's
very
been
nice
great. Thanks
person.
very much, Claudio.
And,
We'll keep in touch over the
over email. Hopefully, we'll do a part 3 one day. And
yeah.
something.
We
It was
probably
very
will.
nice. It was very nice talking to you, Terry. Have a good
Yeah, send me the link.
rest of the
That'll be
day.
great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye, Terry.
Yeah.